Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, the tone of your voice already has me pre-annoyed. This is a show where normally we do a bold prediction show for every upcoming Ohio State game, and you all know how Tony is on those. And I thought, oh, good. Ev will have a week free from his annoying nonsense. And then he's like, I have a show idea. And I thought, I don't care for your tone, but here we are. We have to do a show. So here we are. Tony, what are we doing?
Yeah, that show idea is now that we're 3 games into the season, let's revisit, and actually not even revisit. Let's visit again, which is totally different than revisiting.
Hey, let's spend the rest of the show having you explain the difference between visiting again and revisiting.
For a second time, let's visit. I wanted to go over some new over-unders. Now that we have some information, anybody can do this before the season, and it's a lot of it's wild guessing. But now, Tom, I'm giving you some information. Mm-hmm. So this should be very, very easy now moving forward. If we go over some over-unders, you'd be like, oh, clearly this is that and this is that. Of course, over-unders are not meant to be easy. We'll see how easy these go for you, Tom. And the first one, I'm going to throw it right out there because this is going to be the title of the show. Bo Jackson's rushing yards. I am setting it at 999.5. So, Tom, is Bo Jackson going to rush for 1,000 yards this season?
Are we taking the entirety of the season? So this could potentially be 17 games, right?
Yep.
All right. So I think
he's missed one game, so he would have to average, if they play 17, then you're talking 62.5 yards per game over his next 16. Mm-hmm. And he's already averaging, 108 or so in his 2 opportunities. So, Tom, again, question has been asked.
All right. So the first question is, how many games is Ohio State going to play this year? And it feels like 14 feels like a safe number, where it would, at this point, take something kind of crazy to happen for Ohio State to both miss the Big Ten championship game and also lose in the first round of the playoff. Not that it's not possible, but I think at this point, 14 and a half games is probably a realistic over-under for the season. Maybe we'll come back to that one later when I want to annoy you. But so we'll say 14 games. And so over 13 games, he would have to average 70 something, and he's got a couple 102 games. So the competition is getting more difficult now. I'm going to say dividing carries. He's going to get 10 carries a game. I'm going to say under. I'm going to say under because I think if you're going to keep giving him 9-10 carries a game, he's not going to average 8 yards per carry all season. If he does, great. I'm sure Ohio State fans will be happy and forget that I said under on this. But I think just based on the number of carries, you're probably looking at slightly under.
Okay. If he is getting, say, 10 carries a game, what do you think his yards per carry is going to be this season in those 10 carries moving forward?
In those 10 carries moving forward, he's looking at, I'm going to say, between 5.5 and 6, maybe something like that. So we'll say 5.7. So that's 10 carries for 57 yards times 11 games moving forward. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you're under there, something like that.
So right now, he would have to average, say, 71.2 yards per game on the ground to get to that 1,000 yards moving forward. I'm also with you. I'm going to go under because I think the fact that Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson both barely got there is a significant factor in terms of just that's a reference. That's a reference point. But that's 10 carries a game, 6-7 yards a carry. That's a tall ask. So I am with you as well because he's not going to continue averaging 12 yards a carry. And in order to average the 108 yards that he's doing now, he'd have to, maybe get 15, 16 carries, something like that, which also I don't expect because didn't really happen last year with just 2 running backs. So I'm with you, Tom. But so what is a good number then? Because again, true freshman, he's already got 217 yards under his belt. Is 800? That still seems like a lot to me. Frankly, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think the more I think about it, the more I think 800 is a much more interesting conversation than 1,000. Because 1,000 is, hey, if he breaks a couple 60-yarders here and there, sure, the mileage piles up pretty quickly. But I don't think you're going to have that many of those moving forward because I don't think you're going to have, no disrespect to Grambling in Ohio, but you're going to be playing defenses better than Grambling in Ohio in the majority of your games moving forward. And so then the 64-yarder, that becomes a 25-yarder. And then if you're still at 10 carries, 10 carries a game and you're averaging 5 yards per carry and 9 of them are for 45, 5 yards a pop, that's 45. And then another 25-yarder on top of that, it's 70. And you're still not there over 10 games or so. So yeah, I think 800 is a reasonable number. And, to say, will this, now I'm sure people are going to be shaking their fists and yelling about the disrespect. But if we had said before the season, Bo Jackson, 800 yards over under, everyone would have said, what, you clowns? Like, what are you even talking about? They have 2 other running backs ahead of him. And again, you're dividing the carries up by 3. That makes this so much more of a difficult thing than if it was J.K. Dobbins in 2019, where he's getting 23, 25 carries a game. Yeah, it piles up real fast if you're a good running back and you're getting that many carries. No one's getting that many carries these days.
So he's already done a quarter of that, of the 800 in his 2 games. Of course, that's 3 games total this season. So basically, he's 583 yards short of 800 yards, which over the next 11 games would be 53 yards per game, which 5.3 yards per carry with his 10 carries a game. If that's what he's getting, I think he could do that. And if he sticks to the 9 carries he's getting, feels like he would get that as well. I think the biggest question here is, will he continue to get those 9 carries, 10 carries? Nothing we've seen to this point says otherwise, other than the fact, again, still a true freshman, and he's 1 of 3. So, okay, we both go under 1,000. Did we both go over 800? Did we decide?
Yeah, I'll take over 800 because I think you've got much more potential upside in terms of they play 16 games, rather than 14 instead of 12 games instead of 14. I think you get a possibility of, 2 or 3 more games than we're sort of projecting rather than maybe 1 fewer than you would be the potential downside there.
Then I guess that as an add-on, the number of 800-yard rushers on this team I would set at 1.5, and I might probably go under that, but the number of 700-yard, like at what point do you need to go 3 for 3, like to make it a 2.5? Is it 600?
600 probably?
550, something like that, 600 to go a 2.5 where you'd go over. That we'll revisit that after game 6. Okay, that's when we have more information and we'll put together some more blind over-unders for Tom. Moving to the passing game. All right, so get your mindset on the passing game. Over-under Carnell Tate touchdown catches, 11.5. He has 3, 1 in each game so far this season. So clearly, and this is, should I make this just the regular season? No, we'll go ahead and make it the entire season because he's not going to get a touchdown every game. I don't think. Jeremiah Smith didn't do that. So he had to double up a couple of times. So 11.5 touchdown catches for Carnell Tate this season. And if you go back, Jeremiah Smith had 15 last year. Emeka Egbuka had 10. Marvin Harrison had 14 in 2023. He had 14 in 2022. Chris Olave had 13 in 2021. Garrett Wilson had 12 in 2021 as well. So certainly not unheard of by any means. And right now he's on a pretty good stretch.
He's on a very good stretch. And I'm just kind of was scrolling back through some of these previous seasons where, Garrett Wilson had 12, Chris Olave had 13, like you said, in 2021. I was looking at 2023 and thinking, well, how many touchdowns did Emeka have in 2023? And the answer was 5, which is like, oh boy, that's 14 and 10 in 2022. So it's certainly doable, but it's also they're throwing to so many tight ends now. I was all ready to say yes. I was all ready to say over because it seems like 11 in, you're getting one a game and you're going to have a game where you get 2 at some point and they're going to play 14, 15 games. So it feels like you're going to have as many 2s as you have 0s. But then you look at the previous years and there's lots of years when the second guy didn't have 11, and you've got so many tight ends this year that I think Max Clare stealing a touchdown here and Will Kazmarek stealing a touchdown there and Bennett Christian or Jelani Thurman, these guys are going to be scoring a bunch of touchdowns through the air. I think I'm going under, and I would not have thought that when you were asking the question. I thought, okay, this is probably a fairly easy over, but given how much they're spreading the ball around this year, Jeremiah Smith, yes. Jeremiah Smith, my answer is yes, for whatever the question is. Everyone else, I think you're going to spread the ball around enough and you're seeing enough different formations, and I think you're probably going to see a little more Bryson Rodgers and Mylan Graham at some point, and they are going to start throwing the ball to Brandon Inniss at some point, and so I think they're going to spread it around enough that he ends up with more like 10 instead of 12.
I immediately wanted to go over on this one. And I think one of the things we need to remember is perhaps some of the reason he's doing well is because of all of the attention on Jeremiah Smith. That's not going to go away. We do know they're going to open up the offense in other ways moving forward as everybody gets more comfortable and the receivers get more comfortable, the young guys, and they decide it's time to get Brandon Inniss involved. I'm going to go over because I'm tired of us being cowards on this show through 2 over-unders. I don't think he even, he could have 4 right now, except he didn't. There was the one in the red zone that he didn't come down with because the throw wasn't as pinpoint as it normally is from Julian Sayin. So I will say over, and I do think he'll get to that 12. 11 just seems kind of low, frankly.
I'm sorry. I just want to be clear on this. With the audience that we have, you feel that me saying under on things makes me a coward. That's what makes me a coward with the audience that we have, who I'm sure are like, I sure hope he says under a bunch. That feels like what our audience is looking to hear. So yes, I just want to be clear. I'm the coward here. I just want to make sure we're on the same page there.
Well, 2 things can be true. 1, you can be the coward. 2, also people don't want you jinxing the Buckeyes. Next one. Julian Sayin has already thrown 3 interceptions this season. Some would say he is an interception machine, averaging 1 interception thrown per game. I'm setting the over-under on interceptions for Julian Sayin this year at 9.5. Last year, Will Howard threw 10. The 4 years before that, from 21, 22, 23, from 20, 21, 22, 23, maybe even that whole stretch, like every year. It was 23, 22, 21, sorry. 6 interceptions thrown by the starting quarterback. So I'm just taking, these 3, and then I'll just add on another 6.5 and say 9.5 interceptions. I know where I'm going based mostly on the fact that 2 of these interceptions were flukes, and 1 was just him getting greedy against Grambling State.
Yeah. So, man, I thought you were winding up, and I'm like, he's going to say 12, and I'm going to say under, and I'm going to dust my hands, and that's going to be that. And then you said 9.5, and I had my whole explanation ready that 2 of the interceptions against Ohio were flukes. One of them hit a defensive tackle who had dropped into coverage, and he batted the ball up in the air, and then someone picked it off on the carom, and then the other one really should have been a fumble and not an interception, because it wouldn't have been an incomplete pass if it had hit the ground. So why would it be a interception then? So really, that one should be corrected. And if you were going to say 12, I'm going to say that's an easy under. The problem is those 3 are banked now. And so is he going to throw 6 interceptions or less over the last 9 regular season games, plus potential Big Ten championship game, plus 1 to 4 college football playoff games? That's a lot. That's asking a lot to have 6 for that span of games, because you're looking at better competition. You're looking at probably 13 games. So then you're saying, can he be as good as CJ Stroud was in 2022? Can he be as good as CJ Stroud was in 2021? That's asking an awful lot. Will Howard is really good. CJ Stroud did not play 14 games in either of those seasons, by the way. So I'm going to say he's over that. I'm going to say he's between 9.5 and 11.5. So he finishes around 10, I think is probably a good guess, right around where Will Howard finished last year. Will Howard had a great season last year. Will Howard took care of the ball really well for the vast majority of an extremely long season. And he still went over this number. So I'm going to say he goes over this number. Next year, I'll take under. But this year, you got the 3 already baked in 2 games where you would say, well, certainly he's not going to throw an interception in those games. And then he did. He hasn't had to go on the road yet. You got the wind at Illinois. You got a bunch of road games and you got a bunch of just dumb stuff that's going to add up. Lord knows what Jim Knowles has planned for this, for that Ohio State game. I'm sure it will be something new and creative. So yeah, I will go over, but only slightly over.
You got to figure there's probably an interception against Michigan just because that's the way things go. But yeah, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, Justin Fields, twice CJ Stroud, and once Kyle McCord, all 6 interceptions over the course of a season. And right now, that's all we're asking Julian Sayin to do. And you're saying, hey, America, he can't do it. That's what you are saying. That's interesting. Anyway, let's move to the defense now.
Why did I think I would hate this show? I'm not sure where I get off.
So Arvell Reese right now, tied for the team lead with 2 sacks through 3 games. Wasn't asked to do, much against Grambling State because sportsmanship. Over under on Arvell Reese sacks this year, I am setting at 9.5. And as you think about this, I'm going to go back and try to find the last time an Ohio State linebacker had more than 10 sacks. And you probably have to go back to Ryan Shazier or I'd say probably Ryan Shazier.
So this is one where, as you're talking, I've been just setting the number in my head, and I thought he's going to say 10, and then you said 9.5, and I said sold. We are going to take the over on this one because, yeah, it's very hard for an Ohio State linebacker to get 10 sacks. History has shown that. Is Arvell Reese lining up like an Ohio State linebacker? The answer is sometimes, but not always. Ohio State rush ends have had lots of sacks over the years, and Arvell Reese feels like he's someone who, he's going to take a certain number of snaps lined up as an end. He's going to take a certain number of steps lined up in the middle of the line. He's going to be all over the place. And the way they're moving him around, it feels like he is one of the real featured guys in this year's defense where Matt Patricia is going, this is a guy I don't want the defense to know where he is because I don't want them to be able to block this, line up their protection specifically to focus on him. That tells me Matt Patricia thinks this is someone who's going to be getting home quite a bit this year. So yeah, to me, I will take the over on that. I might have even taken the over on 10.
And I wish I would have looked sooner because it wasn't Ryan Shazier. So I don't know, maybe if it was maybe like an AJ Hawk in 2005 as I scroll through here, because I don't think it's going to have to go all the way back to Andy Katzenmoyer in like 1996. But yeah, boy, 9.5 for AJ Hawk in 2005. So maybe you got to go back 10 years before that almost to find somebody. But again, I'm with you. This isn't just a blitzing linebacker, far from it. And then as a spy, at times, some of these spies where, it is a pass, and so he's waiting for the guy to try to escape the pocket, and then he's going to go get the quarterback. He could end up with some sacks there. I will, sacks and trying to predict sacks never goes well. So I will say, I'm going to say under. I don't feel good about it because of the multi-purpose that he has in the defense.
Well, when we're in the Woody next Wednesday night, when I said Arvell, he said under. I just, good luck with that. I don't know. He looks fast. I don't think he'll be able to outrun him, but we'll see.
And the crazy thing is, like, he has also a tackle on a quarterback at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, where 1 yard back, it would have been a sack. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't feel good about this, and I'm not using much logic in making this choice, which is, boom, story of my life. I'm going to stick with the getting after the quarterback. Kenyata Jackson, no sacks to this point, right? He's had opportunity. Would you agree with that, Tom?
Yes.
I'm going to set the over-under for Kenyata Jackson sacks this season, and he has 3 in his career, at 5.5. So basically asking him to double his career output in the next 13, 11, 12 games. What do you think?
So this is one where I have had the number in my head each time, and I thought 5.5, and then you said 5.5, and I thought, well, shoot, that's not good. That's the number I was thinking. So it feels like that number's not that high, but he hasn't done it. And it also, you're only going to have so many sacks. If you put up 40 sacks as a defense over the course of a year, that's an enormous year. And okay, we've given a quarter of those already to Arvell Reese, and Caden Curry feels like they've kind of found some different creative ways to use Caden Curry in that rushman package. That is probably, that probably takes some away, and you figure CJ Hicks will have a few, and I'm just sort of going through and allocating. Sonny Styles is going to have a few. 5.5 feels like a very, very well set line, because it's like, will he have 5 or will he have 6? Because you would have certainly figured, against Grambling, certainly he will get a sack against Grambling. Certainly he'll get a sack against Ohio, and then you only have to get 4 more the rest of the year. He doesn't have it against Ohio. He doesn't have it against Grambling. So now where do we go with that? I'll say over, just so I'm sort of balancing things out, but I don't feel remotely strongly about this one way or another, because like I said, I think this number is pretty dead on. I think he finishes with 5 or 6, and so 5.5, I kind of look at that number and sort of shrug and go, eh.
He could finish with 5.5,
He could.
So, in 2023, JT Tuimoloau had 5. So, and then the next year he had 12.5. Jack Sawyer was over that 5.5 number in 2023 and 2024, but they don't always even have a defensive end who is over that number. For me, I'm going to go over, because it's hard to ignore how people were talking about him. There will be some sort of a multi-sack game at some point to build that number. So I'm going to go over. I don't think it'll be over by a lot, though.
Yeah, and I'm just sort of thinking through Big Ten offensive lines now, and there are some teams that I've looked at and thought, that's not great tackle play there. So you could very easily see, you pick up a game, a sack and a half or 2 sacks in a game, and boom, all of a sudden you're a quarter of the way there, a third of the way there. So yeah, I'll say over, but not with a great degree of certainty.
Well, let me throw something else on there, because right now Caden Curry tied with Arvell Reese with 2. What is a number for him that would make you like? Because I'm still thinking like 6.5 or 7.5, just because the rotations and the numbers. I don't necessarily see any of these defensive linemen getting more than 7 or 8 sacks this season.
Right. And because I think you're going to see some of them sort of poached by the linebackers, where the linebacker unit's going to end up with more than you traditionally have seen there because they're using them a little differently and they're lining up a little differently this year. Caden Curry, I would be tempted to say over, except it feels to me like Caden Curry has more than 2 sacks. I looked at his stats and thought, is that right? Did they miss a game? What's going on? Because it feels like he's been so active and so disruptive, and it hasn't necessarily shown up in the stat sheet there. So, yeah, 7.5, something like that is reasonable. And if he finishes the year with 6 sacks, that's still a very good year. That's still a very disruptive year because the snaps are getting spread around more. The lineups, the alignments are changing so much that I don't know that I can look at previous years and go, well, this is what Ohio State's top defensive end should have, because they're not playing necessarily quite the same position that they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and what exactly are they being asked to do? How much of this is contained and how much of this is go wreak havoc? All right, Tom, I think we both agree that nobody's going to get any sacks this year other than Arvell Reese. Jermaine Matthews, standout cornerback, junior, number 7, has 1 interception on the season. So this over-under, this number is Jermaine Matthews' total interceptions this season. And when you start thinking about this, it's like, well, he's very good. He gets after the ball. But interceptions are not something that Ohio State does in big amounts at corner over the years. So I am still setting this number, which feels like kind of sizable to me, at 3.5. What?
Yeah. Well, so I'm just going back and looking. When was the last time an Ohio State defensive player had even 3 interceptions in a season?
Jeff Okuda in 2019.
Tanner
Sean Wade in
McAllister in 2022.
Mhm.
Tanner McAllister in 2022, the last Ohio State player to have more than 2 interceptions in a season. And just going back through another one, no one did it in 2021. I'm guessing no one did it in 2020 because there were so many fewer games.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, no one did it in 2020. So Tanner McAllister and Jeff Okuda, someone who went in the top 5 of the NFL draft and someone who I don't know where he is now. I think he went to, did he go to the NFL draft after that season? And then
Undrafted free agent.
Undrafted free agent. So yes. So is Jermaine Matthews either a top 5 draft pick or a NFL undrafted free agent? What a combination that is. I think just based on the total balance of probability here on how frequently guys have that many interceptions, I'm going to say under. Now, all of that was under a Kerry Combs or Jim Knowles defense, and you're seeing a very different. They are doing. I mean, if you've watched the Ross Fulton shows that we've done the last couple of weeks, they are doing all sorts of stuff in the back end of the defense to disguise coverages, and they're putting it on a tee for the quarterback. Good news, we're in cover 3. Sure would hate it if you threw a pass that was, good for beating a cover 3 coverage, and then they rotate, and it's like, nope, we're doing anything but that, anything at all other than that. And so they're disguising coverages, so you figure they might get more interceptions this year. And the pass rush, we keep talking, we just spent a lot of time on the pass rush and the fact that they're going to probably get a number of sacks because they're disguising things up front pretty well as well. So I think you're going to have a lot of confusion. I think you're going to see turnovers. So this is a year where you're probably more likely to have 3 interceptions, but historically, it really has not happened very often. So the odds are the answer is no. So I'm going to say the answer is no. But with as much as they're doing to confuse opposing quarterbacks, could 4 guys have 3 interceptions this year? Yeah, absolutely. Like at this point, I'm ready to believe whatever about this year's defense.
2.5 just felt low to me. Then going back and looking, 2016, you had Marshawn Lattimore and Garyon Conley both with 4 interceptions that year. And we all remember Malik Hooker going off with the 7 interceptions and the 3 touchdowns, but both Lattimore and Conley. So those are got two first-round picks. Do we think Jermaine Matthews could be a first-round pick? Of course. But it's a longer season. I'm also going under just because there's just such a lack of cornerback production in terms of interceptions over the years, and to have to go back to 2016 to be like, yeah, but look, right here, I'm proving you wrong. It's just not sound. But would I be shocked if he has 4 interceptions this year? No. Tom, you probably would be. I would not be shocked.
I would not be shocked if any of the starting defensive backs had 4 interceptions this year. They're not all going to get 4 interceptions, but I mean, are you telling me Caleb Downs can't get 4 interceptions? Are you telling me Jalen McClain can't get 4 interceptions? Davison Igmanosin. It wouldn't shock me if any of them did, or if multiple of them had 3 interceptions. It feels like I kind of want to see it. I understand intellectually why this year's defense might be better and might be more prone to producing turnovers like that. I kind of want to see it because it hasn't, they have not had the 5 turnover game yet. You have not intercepted. Last time I checked, who's Florida's quarterback? It's not Jaden Rashada. The other one, DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway is not on the schedule this year, so we'll see. Maybe you can get that out of someone this year, but you haven't seen it so far. So I'll say let's see it first.
Yeah, Tom wants to see it against a quarterback that isn't Arch Manning. Understood. Last defensive number for me, the over-under on shutouts the rest of the way out. I'm going to just put it at 0.5 because 1.5 felt too high. One more shutout for the defense the rest of the way. What do you say, Tom? You absolute hater.
Well, I always say you never predict a shutout because there's so many things that go into that. But that's on an individual basis for a week. So they got the shutout that you certainly would have expected against Grambling, and they gave up about what you would have expected against Ohio. They were way lower than what you sort of expected against Texas. And there are some bad offenses left on the schedule. I mean, I don't think there's any one game that I look at and say they will definitely get a shutout in this game. But Tony, I wish I knew how to do the 8 clap right now. I wish I remembered how to do that because UCLA, they are walking through that door and it's not great. We'll see what it looks like in the post-Deshaun Foster era, but they're not great. Rutgers is better this year, but you've got teams where you could see it. And this, when you get into the college football playoff conversation piece of the year, sometimes you're looking to make a statement. And so you might be hoping for, you might be looking to specifically do that. So yeah, I will say yes. I will say over 0.5 shutouts in the remaining season.
Yeah. And when looking at that number, you don't even consider the postseason games because you're not even thinking about shutouts there.
Who would get shut out in a college football playoff game, Tony? Can you imagine such a thing?
No, sure couldn't do that.
Remember when we were talking about Malik Hooker? Anyway, what was the last one? You have anything on the special teams?
I do actually. But the last thing, like on the shutouts, it's like Wisconsin, Purdue, and UCLA. And you're probably expecting Wisconsin to score at home. So then it's like, are you going to shut out both Purdue and UCLA back to back? Probably not. So I felt like the 1.5 would be too high because it would have to be almost those two schools. But I would go over on the 0.5 for sure. Tom, last one. Special teams. We know Ohio State wants this to happen. We've seen them try it, put it out there to get it to happen. The number is 0.5. And I am discussing Jeremiah Smith punt return touchdowns. We saw him, they put him out there at midfield, wanting him to get his Heisman moment. We know that they're trying to, they're not going to admit it, but a punt return touchdown would go a long way for a wide receiver who is trying to win the Heisman, and especially for a head coach who is trying to help his player win the Heisman. I am saying 0.5 punt return touchdowns. That is in line. Tom, I'll just let you go. I'll let you know right now. I'm going over.
Yeah, I'm going over as well. I think we've seen enough already where only one guy had 2 touchdowns against Grambling. They really spread it out. Jeremiah Smith scored 2 touchdowns. And Jeremiah Smith scored a passing touchdown or receiving touchdown against Ohio, but they also fed him a reverse in the red zone at a point where you probably didn't need to do that, but you could do that. And so you put that out. Oh, look, here, this will look good on a Heisman reel. Look, he can do it in the running game as well. You saw them put him out there. They had two guys covering the gunner on the short side, I think, of the field on that one. It felt like they're really trying to set that up as a return. I think they're going to do their very best to get Jeremiah Smith a punt return for a touchdown this season, and I am going to say that they will do it. It's something that had not happened for 10 years before Caleb Downs did it last year. The fact that they put him out there last week against Ohio in a moment that was not oh boy, you really got to do it now. If you don't do it now, the game's in jeopardy. That just felt like it would be great to get him a punt return touchdown. I think they are going to be able to do that at some point this year.
Also, Tom, let's keep in mind that we both watched the Colorado State-Washington season opener. Colorado State drew up a double pass that would have worked perfectly, but the receiver could not throw it. What kind of arm does Jeremiah Smith have? Because the attention is going to be his way, and there would be the opportunity for somebody to leak out. And we don't often get to see a Heisman moment type of play for a wide receiver being him throwing a touchdown.
Yeah, and I go back to Eric Crouch catching a touchdown. Think about how often you saw that play during that 2001 season. That was on every time they talked about Eric Crouch, you saw that play. So yeah, I think there's a real possibility they're going to try and get Jeremiah Smith to score 5 different ways this season. You know, have we seen him as a kick returner? I don't know that we've seen him as a kick returner this year. So maybe it's only 4 ways, but you pass, you run, you throw, and you return a punt. Maybe he gets a safety. I don't know. You telling me
shotgun
linebacker?
Put him in shotgun?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I think you're going to have enough games where you can screw around a little bit and get a little cutesy. And I think they will find a way to do that at some point.
All right. So we're both going over on the punt return touchdown for Jeremiah Smith. So that will do it. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. I know a lot of you have. We do appreciate that. If you haven't, you're missing out. I promise you. Of course, you're also missing out if you are not subscribed to BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up now. Say hello to us there on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the stress-free football. Don't let it get to your head. Just enjoy whatever you get to watch and then be safe out there. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.